Prior to 1960, women's roles in society were heavily restricted by the pre-existing societal norms placed upon them. They were expected to remain in the home, and if they did have a job, their salary was almost always drastically less than that of their male co-worker. Thanks to the modern feminist movement, which took off in the 1960s and 70s, the role of women in society was revolutionized. If you know anything about feminism and the progression of women's rights since the 1970s, you have heard of Gloria Steinem. She was at the forefront of the fight for women's rights, and she changed the way women were viewed around the world. Though it was personal challenges that awakened Steinem to the marginalization of women in society, her experience resonated across a wide range of boundaries, heralding a new feminism, where the broader movement gained strength from individual encounters. In response to her own encounter with injustice, Gloria Steinem ignited a fiery women's rights movement in the 1970s, defying critics and impacting the role of women all across the world. From the very beginning, Gloria Steinem had set herself apart from other feminist leaders. She created an international movement on the foundation of her own personal experience, unlike Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susan B. Anthony, who started out on a larger scale. Seeking an abortion at the young age of 22, Steinem was awakened to the injustice faced by women on a daily basis. She felt strongly that even alone she could make an impact. On the contrary, Stanton and Anthony only joined in the fight for others' women's rights after being excluded from the World's Anti-Slavery Convention in London and being denied the opportunity to speak at various temperance rallies. Steinem began alone, using her unique situation as a way to strengthen her fight, rather than something she should be ashamed of. She joined women like Stanton and Anthony later on, but it was her individual experience and her decision to start the fight solo that laid the foundation for her monumental work. Steinem refused to be sidelined into trivial assignments as a journalist because of her gender. Her determination to assert her talent culminated in the creation of a publication that was a vehicle for spreading feminist views. Steinem was asked to go undercover as a Playboy bunny for Show magazine, and then write an article about her experience. In the article, she details her whole experience from start to finish, starting with changing her name and cutting a few years off her age, and ending with the fact that the bunnies were expected to pay for most everything, including the false eyelashes they had to wear. By the end, it is clear how Steinem feels about the sexist treatment the women were subjected to and the Playboy institution as a whole. It was then that she realized because she was a woman, she wasn't being taken seriously as a freelance writer, but still, she wouldn't give up. As a staff writer at New York Magazine, she wrote articles such as Woman in Power in 1969 and earned her reputation as a highly regarded feminist, working tirelessly for gender equality. By 1970, she was reaching the peak of her feminist work. In December 1971, Steinem co-founded Miss Magazine, a feminist publication which went into detail on a variety of topics, all centered around women's rights. It was the first magazine to ever be created, owned, and operated entirely by women. No topic was off limits. From abortion and domestic violence to women's views on politics, every article left the readers wanting more. Women were empowered because their voices were finally being heard. Some of the most famous articles from the first issues, such as Welfare is a Woman's Issue, We Have Had Abortions, and Rating the Candidates, are still referenced today. It was more than a magazine because it was part of a movement that was stirring in the hearts of women and girls across the country. The magazine brought about 226,000 subscriptions and over 20,000 reader letters within the first few weeks. Steinem started Miss Magazine to not only take control of her own journalism, but to create content that had a larger impact. Needless to say, she achieved her goal. Miss continues to consistently captivate readers today.
In perhaps one of the most pivotal moments of her life, Steinem sought an abortion and refused to accept that it be a shameful moment, using the knowledge from her own experience to be instrumental in getting legislation passed, fundamentally altering the status of women in America. She didn't stop at her own resolution. She was inspired to pursue injustice against women more broadly. her personal struggle became a universal cause. Steinem says, "So I sat there as a reporter for New York Magazine, listening to women tell their stories that were tragic and ludicrous and every human emotion all wrapped into one. And I suddenly thought, wait a minute, I had an abortion." Shortly after, she began actively participating in feminist rallies and published a number of works connecting her personal experiences to those of women everywhere. In 1970, she testified in the Senate on behalf of the Equal Rights Amendment. In the following years, she co-founded the Women's Action Alliance, the National Women's Political Caucus, Voters for Choice, Choice USA, and a number of other feminist institutions aiming to empower women and girls. Further, she created Take Our Daughters to Work Day, now an institution around the world, which was the first national day devoted to girls. Her feminist articles, published in a number of prominent magazines at the time, further strengthened her reputation as a forceful advocate for women all over the world. The main focus of the majority of her lectures and literary works was the reproductive freedom of women, which broadens her experience to include so many others. In her article, If Men Could Menstruate, published in Miss Magazine in 1978, Steinem talks extensively about how if the roles of men and women were reversed, the ability to give birth would be desirable by everyone. Additionally, she mentions that if men were the ones carrying children, the ability to have an abortion wouldn't be debated for a minute. Steinem notes, if a woman is unable to control when and whether she has children, her life is reactive, not her own. Though she became an icon for making her personal adversities universal, she also found herself a target of more intense criticism, forcing her to further define her message, which in turn solidified her place in the feminist canon. In 1972, New York Times claimed feminism was just a passing fad. Furthermore, others including Harry Reasoner attacked Steinem and Miss Magazine directly. Just after the magazine was launched, Harry Reasoner said Ms. had 6 months before it ran out of things to say. Reasoner was clearly mistaken, as the magazine still thrives 45 years later. Still, some questions her commitment to the feminist movement because of her glamorous image, and others claimed that by focusing on her own personal experiences, she was not giving enough effort to a broader social change. Steinem fought back by saying, "We need to be long-distance runners to make a real social revolution, and you can't be a long-distance runner unless you have some inner strength." Steinem always returns to the personal because she profoundly understood how influential and essential that was. Oftentimes, as she commanded a larger stage, she would return to the personal connections to reiterate her message. She found strength and motivation in the fact that she could relate to the women she was advocating for. Gloria Steinem has not only revitalized the modern-day feminist movement, but for women everywhere, she emerged as an icon. As she continues her activism into today, Steinem has proved to be more than just a feminist. Young girls and elderly women alike have continued to be empowered by her strength. Her numerous achievements have stretched over the past half a century, including but not limited to being awarded the Glamour Lifetime Achievement Award, the Diane von Furstenberg Lifetime Leadership Award, and the National Gay Rights Advocate Award. In 2013, President Barack Obama awarded Steinem the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the nation's highest civilian honor, given to commend her incredible contributions to the world of feminism and the nation as a whole. Through her perseverance as an activist for not only women's rights, but all injustices faced by people who were considered inferior, she truly lives by her belief that one personal experience can change the world.